It is a curious truth of the human condition that most of the fear and anxiety we experience is born not from the events of our lives, but from the meaning we give them. This is a concept mastered by the ancient Stoic philosophers more than 2,000 years ago. Yet it resonates with startling clarity in our fast-paced, hyper-connected world. In an age where uncertainty feels like the only constant, from the pressures of our careers to the complexities of our relationships, learning to manage fear is no longer a luxury. It is a necessity. This journey will explore 5 specific strategies, grounded in Stoic wisdom, that can help you not only face these powerful emotions, but transform them into catalysts for growth and resilience. These are the timeless methods practiced by history's great thinkers and leaders, strategies tested by time and woven into the fabric of successful lives, bringing about profound and lasting change. If this exploration of wisdom resonates with you, we invite you to subscribe. It is a simple, free gesture that makes a world of difference to our work. We encourage you to experience each part of this journey, as every strategy builds upon the last. By its end, you will hold the tools to confront fear and anxiety with confidence, and to live a life anchored in strength and clarity. Let us begin and uncover how to reclaim control of your life. 1. Understanding fear and anxiety through Stoicism. Fear and anxiety often feel like unwelcome guests in the house of the mind, arriving uninvited and overstaying their welcome. But have you ever paused to ask what these emotions truly are? The Stoics would tell you that fear and anxiety are not the monsters we imagine. They are signals, messengers that illuminate our judgments about the world and the things to which we attach value. To understand this is to take the first step toward mastering them. Imagine standing on a stage, moments before giving a speech. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your mind spirals with a litany of what-ifs. What if I forget my words? What if they laugh? What if I fail? A Stoic would pause here and ask, why does this situation cause you anxiety? The Roman emperor and great Stoic teacher, Marcus Aurelius, believed it is never the situation itself that troubles us, but our perception of it. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." According to Stoicism, fear arises when we imagine losing something we value: our reputation, our safety, our comfort. Anxiety, its close cousin, emerges when we anticipate this loss before it even occurs. Both emotions are fueled by uncertainty, magnifying the unknown into something terrifying. But here is where Stoic wisdom shines. It teaches us that we do not have to be ruled by these feelings. We can instead interrogate them, understand their roots, and decide if they truly deserve our attention. One of the most profound lessons from Stoicism is the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. Epictetus, a former slave who became a revered philosopher, put it simply, "Some things are up to us and some things are not." You cannot control the audience's reaction, the weather on an important day, or the unpredictable turns of life, but you can control your own mind, how you think about these situations, and how you choose to respond. When fear and anxiety appear, the Stoics would have us ask, is this within my power? If it is not, then why waste precious energy worrying about it? Imagine carrying a heavy bag filled with things you have no use for. This is what it is to carry anxiety over things you cannot control. Letting go of that weight is not just liberating, it is life-altering. But what of the things we can control? Stoicism does not encourage a passive acceptance of fate. On the contrary, it demands that we take responsibility for our thoughts and actions. If fear arises from a belief that you are unprepared for a challenge, then prepare. If anxiety stems from uncertainty, focus on the steps you can take to navigate it. The Stoics believed in living actively, not reactively. This proactive mindset can dismantle fear before it ever takes root. There is another layer the Stoics understood deeply: the role of our values. Fear often signals a misalignment between what we truly value and what we focus on. Are we too concerned with the opinions of others? Are we clinging too tightly to material things or fleeting moments of comfort? As the Stoic thinker Seneca reminds us, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a living man." This does not mean we should disregard fear entirely, but that we must examine it. Is it pointing toward something trivial or something meaningful? By anchoring ourselves in these principles, we begin to see fear and anxiety for what they are. Not insurmountable forces, but invitations to reflect and to grow. They ask us to reevaluate our priorities, adjust our perceptions, and focus on what truly matters. When we face these emotions with a Stoic mindset, we reclaim our power. We cease to be passive recipients of our feelings and become the active architects of our lives. So, the next time fear or anxiety knocks at your door, pause. Ask yourself, what am I truly afraid of? Is this within my control? Am I focusing on what really matters? These are the questions of the Stoics, and in their answers lies the key to transforming fear into a tool for growth. 2. The power of perception. It is remarkable how the architecture of our reality is built from the blueprint of our thoughts. Two people can face the very same circumstance. One remains calm, while the other is consumed by anxiety. The difference is not the situation itself, but their perception of it. This idea lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. The ancient Stoics believed that the way we interpret the world determines how we experience it, and that by mastering our perceptions, we can master our response to life's challenges. Imagine you are caught in a traffic jam. You cannot control the cars around you or the relentless ticking of the clock, but you can control your interpretation of the situation. One perspective is frustration. This is ruining my day. Another is acceptance, or even gratitude. I have this unexpected time to listen to my favorite podcast. The event does not change, but your perception of it does. This internal shift, as small as it may seem, can completely transform your emotional state. Epictetus explained this with powerful clarity. What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about these things. Consider that for a moment. It is not the traffic jam, the missed opportunity, or the rude comment that causes us pain. It is the meaning we assign to those experiences. When we learn to question these automatic judgments, we reclaim control over how we feel. This principle extends far beyond minor annoyances. Stoicism teaches us to apply it to life's greatest challenges. Imagine losing a job. At first, this may feel devastating, and it is natural to feel fear or sadness, but a Stoic would encourage you to ask, is there another way to see this? Perhaps this loss creates an opening for new opportunities. Perhaps it is a chance to realign your life with what truly matters. Reframing your perception does not erase the difficulty, but it fundamentally changes how you navigate through it. The beauty of this principle is its power to restore our agency. It reminds us that our perceptions are not fixed, they are malleable. As Seneca observed, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. So often we allow our minds to spiral, turning small setbacks into imagined catastrophes. By anchoring ourselves in rational thought, we can stop that spiral in its tracks. A practical way to apply this is to pause whenever you feel overwhelmed. Instead of reacting immediately, take a breath and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this situation? Simply identifying the narrative running in your head can reveal it to be exaggerated or unhelpful. From there, you can consciously choose a new, more empowering perspective. This practice of reframing is not about pretending everything is fine when it is not. Stoicism is not blind optimism. It is about seeing things with absolute clarity and choosing a response that aligns with your values. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself to focus on what he could do in the present moment rather than being lost in fear or regret. He wrote, "Don't let your reflection on the whole sweep of life crush you. Stay focused on the present situation." The Stoics also understood that perception can turn adversity into an advantage. A failure can be a dead end, or it can be a lesson. A rejection can feel like a loss, or a redirection toward something better. By shifting our perspective, we take ownership of our experiences, no matter how difficult they may be. When you begin to see your perception as a tool, you realize the immense power you hold over your own emotional world. Life will always present challenges, that is unavoidable. But what remains firmly within your control is how you choose to interpret them. And as the Stoics taught, mastering this is the key to mastering yourself. 3. Focusing on the present. Have you ever noticed how much of your time is spent perpetually adrift in the currents of yesterday and tomorrow? Your mind might be replaying a past conversation or spinning scenarios about what might happen next. It is as if our thoughts are constantly pulling us away from the one place where life is actually happening, the present moment. The Stoics understood this profoundly, and they believed that true peace and clarity can only be found when we anchor ourselves in the now. Imagine you are at your desk, working on a project. Instead of focusing on the task at hand, your thoughts are fractured, jumping between what you failed to finish last week and the mountain of work that awaits you tomorrow. This mental chatter creates stress, not because of the work itself, but because you are splitting your attention across moments that no longer exist or have yet to arrive. The philosopher-emperor Marcus Aurelius offered a simple directive: confine yourself to the present. This idea is deceptively simple. It doesn't mean ignoring the past or failing to plan for the future. The Stoics were not advocates for recklessness. Instead, they taught that our energy is best spent on what we can influence right now, in this exact moment. The past is unchangeable. The future is unknowable. Only our actions in the present can truly shape our lives. Consider how much anxiety stems from either regret or anticipation. You might be replaying an awkward moment, wishing you had said something different. Or perhaps you are worrying about an upcoming decision, lost in an endless maze of what-ifs. The Stoics would encourage you to pause and ask, what is within my power right now? As Epictetus reminded us, the present is the only time we can truly act. Staying present does more than just reduce anxiety. It enriches our experience of life itself. How often do we rush through our days without truly noticing them? We are so busy checking off tasks and worrying about what's next that we forget to appreciate the small wonders, the warmth of sunlight on our skin, the sound of laughter, the simple satisfaction of completing a task with care. The Stoics believed that by fully inhabiting the present moment, we can find joy and meaning even in the most mundane activities. One practice the Stoics used to stay grounded was a form of mindfulness. They would remind themselves to focus entirely on the task at hand, whether simple or complex. Marcus Aurelius advised himself to do every act of your life as though it were the last act of your life. This doesn't mean living with frantic urgency, but rather approaching every moment with intention and care. Even something as ordinary as eating a meal becomes richer when you are fully present. Another powerful Stoic tool is to break down overwhelming situations into smaller, manageable parts. Instead of worrying about the entirety of a challenge, focus only on the very next step. Seneca suggested that we should never let the whole sweep of life crush us. By tackling one thing at a time, we not only make progress but also avoid the paralysis that comes with overthinking. Living in the present also means accepting the moment as it is, without resistance. If it is raining, let it rain. If there is a delay, use that time for reflection. The Stoics understood that fighting reality only compounds our suffering. By embracing the present, we align ourselves with the natural flow of life and find a profound sense of freedom. It is not always easy to remain present. Our minds are wired to wander, and modern life pulls our attention in a million directions. But the Stoics teach us that returning to the now is like strengthening a muscle. It becomes easier with practice. Start small. The next time you feel your thoughts drifting, gently guide them back. Notice your surroundings, your breath, the task before you. This simple act can transform your relationship with time and with yourself. By focusing on the present, we reclaim our power. We stop being prisoners of what was or what might be, and instead become fully engaged with what is. 4. The practice of negative visualization. Have you ever noticed our tendency to avoid thinking about the worst-case scenario? It is as if we believe that by refusing to imagine it, we can somehow prevent it from happening. But the truth is, avoiding these thoughts does not protect us. In fact, it often makes us more anxious, because the unknown looms larger and more monstrous in our minds. This is where one of the most profound Stoic practices comes into play: negative visualization. This is not an exercise in pessimism or dwelling on doom. It is a form of mental and emotional preparation, a way to fortify yourself so that fear no longer holds you captive. Imagine you are planning an important event. The thought of something going wrong, bad weather, a technical failure, a forgotten detail, might send you into a spiral of anxiety. The Stoics would encourage you to face those fears head-on, not to frighten yourself, but to diminish their power. As Seneca wrote, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." In other words, when we calmly consider what could go wrong, we strip those possibilities of their ability to overwhelm us. Negative visualization involves intentionally imagining the loss of things we value. But the key is to do so from a place of calm reflection, not panic. You think through what might happen and, crucially, how you would respond. For instance, if you worry about losing your job, you might ask yourself, what would I do if that happened? How would I manage my finances? What new opportunities might this create? By confronting the possibility, you begin to see that it is a challenge to be navigated, not the catastrophe it appears to be when it's just an unspoken fear lurking in the shadows of your mind. This practice does more than just prepare you for adversity. It has a surprising and beautiful side effect: gratitude. When you take a moment to imagine losing something important, your health, your home, a loved one, it makes you appreciate those things profoundly in the present. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the impermanence of life as a way to stay grounded, reminding himself that everything we have is on loan from fortune. By practicing negative visualization, we learn to cherish what we have while we have it. The Stoics would even take this practice from the theoretical to the tangible. Seneca, for example, would periodically spend days eating only the simplest food and wearing the plainest clothes, asking himself, "Is this what I feared?" This exercise taught him that even the circumstances he dreaded were not as terrible as his imagination had painted them. It gave him the confidence that he could endure whatever life might bring. It may seem counterintuitive. Doesn't imagining bad outcomes make you more anxious? In truth, the opposite often happens. When you practice negative visualization, you move from vague, overwhelming fears to specific, manageable scenarios. It is like turning on the lights in a dark room. The shadows that seemed so terrifying are revealed to be nothing more than ordinary furniture. Instead of being paralyzed by "what if," you start asking, "so what?" and "how would I handle this?" This practice trains your mind to be resilient. Life is unpredictable. Things will go wrong. But if you have already imagined and mentally prepared for those moments, they lose their sting. You stop seeing setbacks as insurmountable disasters and start viewing them as challenges you are equipped to face. As Epictetus said, difficulties are things that show a person what they are. Negative visualization is not about expecting the worst. It is about being ready for it. It is like carrying an umbrella on a cloudy day. You hope you won't need it, but you are prepared if you do. This preparedness does not create anxiety. It fosters a quiet confidence. So, take a few minutes each day to consider a fear. Visualize it in detail, not just the problem, but your response. Remind yourself of your strengths and resources. Over time, you will find that these fears lose their edge, replaced by a deep sense of calm, gratitude, and control. 5. Building resilience through endurance. Resilience is not a trait we are born with. It is a fortress we build, brick by brick, often in the very moments when life's storms are raging. Think back to a time when you faced a significant obstacle, a lost job, a difficult relationship, a personal failure. At the time, it may have felt overwhelming, even impossible. Yet, looking back, you can likely see how that experience shaped you. It revealed a strength you did not know you possessed. It taught you that you have the capacity to endure. This, at its core, is the Stoic understanding of resilience. It is forged in the fires of adversity. The Stoics had a unique perspective on hardship. They did not see challenges as setbacks to be avoided, but as opportunities for growth. Seneca famously said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Hardships, he argued, are what sharpen our character. Just as a blade is honed by friction, we are made stronger by the struggles we endure. Consider an athlete training for a marathon. Every grueling run, every aching muscle, every moment of pushing past the desire to quit is an act of endurance. The training is not the goal itself. It is the process that builds the strength, stamina, and mental fortitude required to complete the race. The struggle is the source of the strength. In the same way, life's challenges are our training ground. Each difficulty we overcome, each fear we face, adds to our resilience. It proves to us that we can withstand more than we thought possible. By choosing to endure rather than retreat, we are not just surviving. We are actively building the strength we will need for whatever lies ahead. This is the art of turning obstacles into opportunities and suffering into strength. The path to endurance is never easy. It is paved with long runs and sore muscles, with days when motivation is a distant memory. Yet, through the pain and the effort, our strength grows. The same is true for the resilience of our minds and hearts. Each time we confront a difficulty and choose not to surrender, we become better equipped to handle the next challenge. The Stoics were practical philosophers who didn't just speak of resilience, they lived it. Epictetus, for example, was born into slavery and faced unimaginable hardship. Yet he refused to let his circumstances define him. Instead, he focused on what he could control, his mindset and his actions. He taught his students that while we cannot always choose our circumstances, we can always choose our response. Difficulties are things that show a person what they are, he said. Adversity, in his view, was a mirror, revealing our true character. One of the key Stoic principles is to prepare for adversity in advance. They called this premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This practice involves imagining potential challenges and considering how you might respond. It isn't an exercise in pessimism, but rather the deliberate construction of mental fortitude. By preparing for difficulties, you are less likely to be caught off guard when they arise. And when you have already envisioned yourself enduring tough times, you face them with a quiet confidence in your own ability. Another way the Stoics built resilience was by embracing voluntary discomfort. Seneca, for instance, would periodically live as though he were poor, eating simple food and wearing plain clothes. He wanted to remind himself that even in the worst of circumstances, he could endure. "Is this the condition I so feared?" he would ask. This practice not only strengthened his resilience, but also diminished his fear of losing comfort and luxury. When you prove to yourself that you can handle discomfort, its power over you begins to fade. Endurance also teaches us patience. The Stoics understood that not all challenges can be conquered quickly. Sometimes, the only way out is through. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about the importance of perseverance, reminding himself to approach each day's tasks, no matter how daunting, with discipline and focus. "Endure and persist," he urged. This is the philosophy of life. It's easy to romanticize resilience, but the truth is, building it isn't glamorous. It's messy, uncomfortable, and often frustrating. But it is also deeply rewarding. Every time you push through a difficult moment, you prove to yourself what you are capable of. You learn that pain, whether physical or emotional, is temporary. You discover that setbacks do not have to define you. They can refine you. The Stoics saw resilience not as an end goal, but as an ongoing practice. Life will continue to test us, sometimes in ways we cannot predict. But by embracing endurance, we become stronger with each challenge. We stop fearing difficulties and start seeing them as opportunities to grow. This leads us to our sixth principle, the art of detaching from outcomes. Have you ever felt paralyzed by the need for a specific result? Perhaps you've poured your energy into a project, a relationship, or a personal goal, only to find yourself obsessively worrying about the outcome. It's exhausting. That fear of failure or disappointment can steal your peace of mind. But what if you could release that pressure and simply focus on the process itself? The Stoics believed this was not only possible, but essential for a fulfilling life. At the heart of Stoicism is the idea that while we control our actions, we cannot control their outcomes. As Epictetus put it simply, some things are up to us, and some things are not. Your effort, your preparation, and your attitude are all within your control. The results, however, depend on countless factors far beyond your influence. Recognizing this distinction is liberating. It frees you from the burden of worrying about what you cannot change and allows you to channel your energy into what you can. Think of an artist at their canvas. They pour their heart and soul into every brushstroke, but once the painting is complete, how others perceive it is out of their hands. Will it be admired or criticized? A Stoic would say that is irrelevant. What matters is that the artist gave their best effort and remained true to their vision. The same applies to any endeavor. Whether you're applying for a job, training for a marathon, or starting a business, your task is to give it your all, not to cling to a specific result. But detaching from outcomes doesn't mean you stop caring. On the contrary, it means caring deeply about what you are doing, while accepting that the final result is not entirely yours to determine. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to focus on his duty rather than the rewards. "Never let the future disturb you," he wrote. "You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present." This mindset keeps you grounded in the moment, free from the anxiety of what might or might not happen. One of life's greatest sources of stress is the gap between our expectations and reality. We set our sights on a particular outcome, And when things don't go as planned, we feel frustrated, disappointed, or even defeated. The Stoics teach that this suffering arises not from the situation itself, but from our attachment to how we believed things should be. By detaching from those expectations, we can face life's twists and turns with far greater resilience and calm. Imagine studying for an important exam. You've done everything you can to prepare. Hours of reading, practice tests, sleepless nights. But on the day of the exam, the questions are unexpectedly difficult. Or perhaps you don't feel well. The outcome is uncertain. Instead of fixating on the score, a Stoic would encourage you to focus on the effort. Did you prepare diligently? Did you give your best? If the answer is yes, then you have already succeeded, regardless of the grade. This perspective is just as crucial in our relationships. Sometimes, despite your best efforts to communicate, support, or nurture someone, a relationship doesn't work out. It's tempting to blame yourself or feel like a failure, but a Stoic would remind you that the other person's choices and feelings are not within your control. What is within your control is how you showed up, how you acted, and how you treated them. By focusing on those aspects, you can find peace even when things don't go the way you hoped. Detaching from outcomes is not about abandoning ambition. It's about anchoring your happiness and sense of self in the process, not the result. When you define success by your effort, rather than by external validation, you reclaim your power. As Seneca said, "The wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not." This isn't about settling, it's about finding fulfillment in the act of striving itself, rather than in the fruits of your labor. The beauty of this principle is that it creates a kind of invincibility. When you detach from outcomes, you are no longer at the mercy of circumstance. Whether you win or lose, succeed or fail, you remain steady because your value isn't tied to what happens. It's tied to how you live. And finally, our seventh principle, living with courage. Courage is a quality we all admire in others, but often hesitate to claim for ourselves. We think of cinematic heroes, firefighters running into burning buildings, or activists standing against injustice. And while those are undoubtedly acts of bravery, courage isn't reserved for extraordinary moments. It's something we are called to practice every single day, often in the quiet, personal battles that no one else sees. The Stoics understood this deeply. To them, courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about taking action, despite the fear. Think about the last time you were afraid to do something important. Perhaps it was speaking up in a meeting, confronting someone about an issue, or starting something new. That small voice in your head likely whispered, "What if I fail? What if I look foolish?" Fear can be paralyzing, playing on our deepest vulnerabilities. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to move forward in spite of it. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." The Stoics believed that fear is a natural part of life. It is how we respond to it that defines us. Epictetus taught his students to focus on what lies within their control. You may not be able to eliminate fear entirely, but you can always control how you act when it appears. Don't hope that events will turn out the way you want, he advised. Welcome events in whichever way they happen. This is a call to action. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. For the moment you feel completely confident. Act now, even with fear as your companion. Courage isn't always about grand gestures. It is often found in small, everyday decisions. It is the courage to say no to something that misaligns with your values, even when it's uncomfortable. It is the courage to stand up for yourself when a boundary is crossed. It is the courage to admit when you are wrong and make amends. These moments may not make headlines, but they are what shape your character and strengthen your spirit. One of the most powerful aspects of Stoic courage is the idea of embracing discomfort. The Stoics knew that growth requires stepping into the unknown. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This means courage begins with your mindset. When you face a challenge, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What can I learn from this? How can I grow through this?" Fear thrives on uncertainty. The what-ifs can spiral out of control, making the challenge ahead seem insurmountable. But as Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." By confronting our fears head-on, we often find they are not as overwhelming as we thought. It is the act of avoiding or running from fear that gives it power. Courage also requires vulnerability, and this may be the hardest part. To live with courage means to take risks, knowing you might fail or be hurt. But as the Stoics teach, failure is not something to fear, it is something to embrace. Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body, Seneca wrote. Every setback is an opportunity to learn and improve. When you stop fearing failure, you open yourself to possibilities you might never have imagined. Another vital aspect of Stoic courage is its connection to integrity. True courage isn't reckless or selfish. It's about doing what is right, especially when it is hard. It is staying true to your principles when it costs you something. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to act with justice, kindness, and humility, no matter the circumstances. Courage, in this sense, is about staying anchored in your values when the world tries to pull you in other directions. Living with courage doesn't mean you won't feel fear. You will. But every time you face it and choose to act anyway, you are building a muscle. And like any muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Over time, you'll find that the things that once intimidated you no longer hold the same grip. You will discover a freedom that comes from knowing you can handle whatever life brings your way. Fear and anxiety need not dictate the course of your life. With the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, you have the power to transform these emotions into strength, clarity, and resilience. Remember, every step you take toward mastering your emotions is a step toward mastering your life. Thank you for being a part of Stoic Journal today. Your time and attention mean the world to me. If you found value in this video, don't stop here. Click on one of the suggested videos on your screen to dive deeper into practical Stoic strategies that will guide you toward living a calmer, more fulfilled life. And as always, stay strong, stay centered, and I'll see you in the next video.